Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my 2013 Vita Retrospective. It's a long time coming, I'm behind on this one. I really was hoping to get all of my Vita Retrospectives out before March of this year when they were going to stop producing physical cartridges for the Vita. So I saw this week a bunch of companies put out their last titles. This America did, and I saw Aksys put a bunch of their stuff on sale. So still able to get some of that stuff, but older stuff is climbing in price like crazy. And that was part of the reason I was doing this retrospective series now, was to learn about a lot of that stuff and pick up the stuff I wanted before prices climbed, and they're climbing. So I think I have most of what I want, but there are some titles out there that, really shot up. That stuff has climbed up pretty quickly based on some of the rare titles I was looking at. So, some places still might not know, and they might have their old pricing still in effect. So go out and try and find those good prices while you still can, because I think Vita is going to be really collectible this year. Let's get into 2013. The second year for the Vita has quite a few good titles. I only have 3 on the table that I kept in my collection. I'm being really picky about what I keep now, but there's a ton of great stuff still if you're looking for every Vita exclusive or, just a great titles worth checking out. I'm going to go through every exclusive for this year, so let's get right into it. The first game of the year is Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. Now, this was another attempt to keep a popular PS2 exclusive series going, being the fourth Sly Cooper game. It was developed by Sanzaru Games. They also ported the original games for the Sly Cooper collection, so they're pretty familiar with the franchise. This was released alongside a PS3 version, and players who owned both could use a feature through the Vita's AR functions to find collectibles. It's a decent follow-up to the Sly Cooper series. Again, it's another one of those fourth games by, not the original developers, but a pretty decent game in its own right. Following that is Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 Plus. Like the first Ninja Gaiden Sigma, this is a portable port of the PS3 Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, which itself is a port of Ninja Gaiden 2 for the 360. This version features new touchscreen and pad controls, a hero mode where you get stronger as you take more damage, and a competitive ninja race mode. There's also a tag battle mode where you switch between 2 ninjas defending an AI character. So some new content there, but overall I think I prefer to play this on the PS3. Following that is MLB 13 The Show. Just worth mentioning as, Sony's exclusive baseball franchise. They finally brought the series to the Vita so you can play on the go. I'm sure that was a big thing for big fans of that series. And more ports after that, Dead or Alive 5 Plus. This is a port of the console version of Dead or Alive 5. It lacks some of the features like tag battles, but it introduces new training options and combo challenges, and a new mode where you can use the touchscreen controls to fight against characters in first person while holding the Vita vertically. So, a silly mode, but given that the game is really based around their character models, that might be something some people are interested in. Following that, a game I might want to check out. I've seen it kind of cheap around, so it may be worth picking up. That's Soul Sacrifice. A third-person action RPG with a heavy focus on its mission structure and combat mechanics. It was conceived and created by Inafune, who is best known for his work on the Mega Man series. The game features a customizable character who relives past battles through a magical book in order to get strong enough to take out the evil sorcerer who feeds off humans to stay immortal. The unique feature about the game is the risk-reward sacrifice system, where you can sacrifice your character's body parts to activate spells. The spells are typically powerful and can help complete the missions, but there's a trade-off for each one that can affect your stats and gameplay. You can only restore your sacrificed body parts between missions, so you have to be careful about when you use them. Your created character has abilities and can be set up to work as one of the several traditional RPG roles, which come more into play through the multiplayer mode, which allows 4 players to take on certain missions together. The game does sound and look really cool. I just kind of always considered it another Monster Hunter kind of thing, so I'm not sure how it holds up as a single player experience, but still something I'd like to check out. Following that, just worth a quick mention is the Jak and Daxter collection, which, like the PS3 version, includes the first 3 games in the Jak series, which were originally developed by Naughty Dog. So next, the first game I have in my collection, and it's an exciting one to have for people who didn't really play many Wii games, that is Muramasa Rebirth. This game came out with a special edition as well that had a big box and stuff. I just have the regular one, but I managed to pick up some of that extra stuff at a free swap meet, so I got like the little bag and the soundtrack, which is always cool to have. Muramasa Rebirth was Vanillaware's Wii exclusive side-scrolling action RPG. On the Wii, it was originally called Muramasa the Demon Blade. This Rebirth version includes HD graphics, well compared to the original Wii anyway, updated controls that removed the motion controls, and a new English translation. The big draw for fans of the original are 4 pieces of DLC that were added post-launch that added new stories, each featuring a new character that used a different type of weapon. So it's a shame that that's DLC only and not in on the cart, but if you've never played this game, it is well worth checking out. Following that, another Vanillaware title, Dragon's Crown. Now this fantasy-themed beat-em-up with a really interesting art style just launched alongside the PS3 version, but worth checking out if you're into those kinds of games, though I think this is better to play multiplayer on the PS3. Finally, another fully Vita exclusive and a game based on a first-party franchise that, people were looking forward to, and maybe the first-party franchise game to come out on the Vita that's actually good. That is Killzone Mercenary. It was a pretty anticipated title, especially after the PSP one was pretty good in its own right. With the power of the Vita, they don't have to kind of tweak the gameplay for a portable platform. It can now just be a fully featured first-person shooter, so that's what they've done. The game stars a new character and features 9 missions that take place throughout key events from the first 3 Killzone games. So if you played those games, this is a neat kind of side story that shows what's happening on the other side of things. The multiplayer mode features 27 objective-based matches. It lets each player play as a mercenary fighting for either side of the war in order to get cash and upgrade their loadout. And apparently as of, mid last year, this game was still going strong online, so worth checking out online if you are into it. I know a lot of people do really dig that online mode and think this is one of the best experiences on the Vita. Although the single player mode is criticized for being pretty short, I think it's really the multiplayer mode that impressed people here. Although the single player mode is supposed to be pretty short, so if you're not into checking out that multiplayer stuff while it's still up, this might be one that is hit or miss for you. It's definitely worth checking out though if you want to see what's possible on the Vita, because it's a pretty high quality game. Following that is Valhalla Knights 3. A follow-up to the 2 PSP and the Wii spin-off action RPGs. This game introduces a 7-party system where you can bring 6 other team members into real-time battles going against another group of enemies. You can switch between your 7 party members to take control of any of them and use their unique skills, or you can issue commands to them directly during your fights. Characters are made up of 7 races and 7 classes, which each have unique abilities and personality traits. The story missions involve your character getting cursed on a mission to steal some treasure and has to deal with the consequences of the curse, which could kill them for disobeying orders. The whole time they're trying to find a way to be free of it and fight back. Next up is Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. Just for a quick mention, since technically this did come out on the 3DS as well, but it's a 2.5D spin-off of the Batman Arkham series, which is of course a really popular series, but I think this portable spin-off didn't quite hit the mark with fans. And next up is the second game I have in my collection for this year, and one I didn't have until really recently. I picked it up when I was doing the research for this episode because I thought, you know what, the updated version isn't quite as good, and it's a pretty important title for the Vita library. So that is Tearaway. This is a papercraft-style third-person 3D platformer by the creators of Little Pig Planet. It makes use of the Vita's unique features to bring some interesting gameplay mechanics in. You play a messenger who travels through this really unique-looking world. You can tear, fold, or crumple the papercraft objects in the game to kind of solve puzzles, and the touch controls let you draw assets into the game. The rear pad lets you manipulate the environment, and the camera lets you bring images in as well, so there's a ton you can do here with the Vita hardware. It's definitely a standout Vita exclusive, but there was a PS4 update that came out years later. It's not quite as good because it doesn't use all those hardware features quite to their full effect. It doesn't translate over quite as smoothly, so worth checking out if you have a Vita and want kind of, some of the games that really stand out on the system. And after that, Ys Memories of Soketa, the third and last game I have in my collection for the Vita for this year. It was also released in a special edition with a big box and a bunch of extras. I just didn't pull that out of storage to show off now. This is a remake of the original computer version of Ys 4, not to be confused with the completely different Super Famicom or PC Engine versions of the game. It's a top-down action RPG set between Ys 2 and 3, where Adol arrives in Soketa with amnesia and is tasked by the governor to explore and create a map of the land, which of course leads to a huge adventure full of mysteries in the surrounding area. The core game design is what you'd expect from an Ys game, with top-down action RPG elements, skills, weapon and armor upgrades, and relics that grant new abilities to be used in puzzle solving. The battle system has been upgraded to be much more like recent Ys games, where the player switches between a 3-person party, and each member has 3 different types of attacks, and it's kind of a rock, paper, scissors mechanic to decide which attacks hurt which enemies more. Following that is Sorcery Saga, Curse of the Great Curry God. Now, this is a traditional top-down roguelike dungeon crawler with a 3D chibi art style. It's based on the Mado Monogatari games, which is a Japanese-only first-person dungeon crawling series. The game includes an overworld with towns and a number of randomly generated dungeons to explore. In the game, you find treasure and battle enemies through a standard roguelike battle system. The game was a fully Vita exclusive for about 5 years before it came to PC last year as well. And that's it for all the physical exclusives. Well, there weren't too many fully exclusives there. There was a lot of platform exclusives that were available on other, PS3 or 4. But I want to cover more than just a couple games in these videos. So let's move right on to the digital stuff. There were some notable digital exclusives that came out here. There were a ton of other PS3 ports I'm not going to mention, just games that launched alongside their PS3 versions. Some of those games had cross-play, so if you had it on one, you could play it on the other and save your progress between the two. There was a ton of indie titles that also came out that, again, I won't mention because they're available on everything. But if you really like playing games on the Vita, it's a great way to play some of those games like Hotline Miami and Spelunker and, stuff like that. The first big digital exclusive is Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable. This is just a port of the original 360 game, which was the first Earth Defense Force game to come out over here. This is a really fun but basic game where you go around and destroy bugs with different guns. It was based on a kind of budget title in Japan, and the series grew from there, and it's a ton of fun multiplayer. Following that is Escape Vector, a fun modern take on a classic maze game. Escape Vector has the player moving along a maze made up of connecting boxes. The goal is to cover all the lines that make up the boxes while avoiding traps and enemies throughout the 150 different levels. Then, Let's Fish Hooked On, a Vita exclusive Japanese fishing game that includes World Tour, Challenge, and Training modes. Following that is Bentley's Hackpack, a spin-off of Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, that puts you into Bentley's arcade and features 3 arcade machines with different versions of the 3 hacking games from the main game. The games are System Cracker, Alter Ego, and Spark Runner. Each one has 20 levels and 5 goals for each stage. Completing goals and levels earn you tokens which you can spend in the prize gallery. Then we got Ecolibrium, an ecosystem simulation game where you try to balance your world with the different plants, creatures, and artifacts. A big part of the game was exchanging gifts with other players, which was likely done through the Vita's now discontinued Near feature, so I'm not sure how good it is without that. Next up is Atelier Totori Plus, The Adventures of Arland. This is a port of the 12th game in the Atelier RPG series and the second game in the Arland sub-series, and I'm sure at some point after I cover enough of these I'll learn to say that name properly. But this one includes new costumes, bosses, and an extra post-game dungeon, so yeah, just more content over the original PS3 version. Then we got Table Minigolf, an AR minigolf game published by Sony, where the courses are built in your environment through the AR camera. After that was Dragon Fantasy Book 1. This was one of the first big retro-style RPG throwbacks that was initially a PS3 and Vita exclusive, and later this year, Book 2 was also released on the Vita, but I just remember this kind of being a big deal on the Vita at the time for indie fans. Then a game I'm surprised didn't come out physically, Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R. Wow, that title gets long. This is the only home version of the 5th and final update to Guilty Gear X2. It just features a new balance, some new moves for characters, but the lack of an online mode makes it kind of pointless. Next up was Draw Slasher, a cartoonish touch control game where you control a ninja by tapping and swiping the screen to move around, avoiding obstacles and cutting through enemies. It features a story mode, endless challenge modes, and upgradable skills. Then another port of a PS3 game, but because it's a huge PlayStation franchise, Ratchet & Clank Full Frontal Assault. This spin-off is a return to the series' original controls and camera, but adds in new tower defense mechanics. The campaign mode is set over 3 planets, and lets the player control Ratchet, Clank, who now has a giant Clank mode, and Captain Quark. The multiplayer mode allows for 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 competitive matches as well. Next up is Pinball Heroes Complete, an update of the PSP pinball game with PlayStation-themed tables. Features include updated graphics, new controls, and 8 tables overall. The table themes include stuff like Uncharted, Pain, High Velocity Bowling, Hot Shots Golf, Mod Nation Racers, Bat Princess, Wipeout, and Motorstorm, so a cool thing to look at for PlayStation fans. Then Velocity Ultra, an update of the shoot 'em up that was originally a PSP Minis game. It features updated graphics, adds touchscreen controls, and it was also released on PS3 later this year, but it was exclusive to the Vita for at least half the year. And the series has taken off a bit more with its sequel, so worth checking out if you were into that. Next up was Pixel Junk Monsters Ultimate HD. Basically an HD version of the PSP port, Pixel Junk Monsters Deluxe, which includes all the newer stages from that game and also includes the PS3 release's original and DLC stages. So the most complete version of the game for fans, but not physical for collectors. Then we got Super Frog HD, a mediocre remake of the Amiga 2D mascot platformer that was released on the PS3 and Vita. After that was OpenMe, a Vita exclusive AR game by Sony that has the player solving a variety of puzzles to open up boxes. And another Atelier game after that, Atelier Maruru Plus, The Apprentice of Arland. So another port of a PS3 game, which was the 13th game in the overall series, and the direct sequel to Atelier Totori, which we talked about just a couple minutes ago. This Plus version includes new scenes, costumes, areas, and bosses. Worms Revolution Extreme was after that. This is a Vita exclusive pack of the PS3 and 360 digital game. It includes the base game and all 3 DLC packs. This is a 2.5D version of the original Worms gameplay. Revolution adds some new character classes to the Worms, which change things up a little bit. Then is Proteus, an indie exploration game with a simple but unique art style and procedurally generated island. The Vita version allows the player to use the rear touchpad to affect the environment, so that's kind of an exclusive feature there. Staying on these artistic titles, Euphoria HD, a platform exclusive port of the artistic RTS-like game where you plant trees on asteroids that act like attackers and defenders to protect against enemies and help take out other asteroids. The game uses procedurally generated levels and features a 25-stage story mode. There's also a skirmish mode and a dark matter mode. Just to quickly run off a couple notable ports of PS4 and 3 games, the Vita this year also got Stealth Inc. A Clone in the Dark, Flower, Rainbow Moon, Doki Doki Universe, and Flow. So that's it for Vita for 2013. Some great games there, definitely a lot of stuff worth checking out. It's only the second year and Sony isn't really bringing a ton of stuff to it. That's only going to slow down, which is a shame, but there are still a ton of great games to talk about. If you haven't seen the launch video, the 2012 year, check that out. I also have up 2017 and 2018 videos that you can check out for the Vita, and I'm really planning to get to the remaining years, which I guess would be 14, 15, and 16 soon, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe and share this with your friends if you dig it. It really helps me out, keeps me motivated to get more of these up. I'm going to get through a bunch of other retrospectives soon. I have a ton out there. If you haven't seen them, go check them out, and I'll see you guys next time.